Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 328 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. And here at the Unpopular Podcast, I'm not really asking you to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. You know, ever since the news came down that Dan Snyder is finally selling the Washington Commanders, or has a deal in principle to sell the Washington Commanders, I've just been on cloud nine. There's been a glee about me, you know. So I'm going to try my hardest. I promise you. I'm going to try my hardest to be as unbiased as I can. For people that know me, people that's listened to the podcast, you know that I'm from Maryland. I'm from PG County. I'm from the DMV. I grew up watching the Washington. Back then it was the Redskins, and then it was the football team, and now it's the Commanders. So I have sweat equity. I even worked for them. I have sweat equity in Washington. And how can you tell how a tenure went or is going? There's evidence everywhere. Again, I'm trying to tell you, I'm going to try to be as unbiased as possible, but hey, I doubt that's going to happen. At least this section. There's a reason when this news came down, when the news that Dan Snyder, there's agreement in principle, or there's an agreement written up that Josh Harris, who is currently the owner of the 76ers and the New Jersey Devils, I believe, he's leading a group that has Magic Johnson in it. They will be buying the Washington Commanders for like $6.05 billion. I asked, how can you tell how a tenured is going for somebody, or how the tenured went? And you can always tell by the reaction that you get when you leave, or history can tell you how things are going. There's a reason why. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick strictly to football. Because trust me, if I wanted to go personal, we can talk about things that were off the field or outside of the walls of the Washington organization when talking about why Dan Snyder was widely considered one of, if not the worst owner in football. So I'm not gonna broach on the political stuff. I'm not gonna broach on the personal things. What I'm going to do is talk about everything that happened and transpired while Dan Snyder was the owner, and why why droves and droves of people are relieved today that Dan Snyder will essentially be out as the owner of the Washington Commanders. Again, you can always tell how something's going by how it's been compared to how it is now, and how the reception is when you leave. I am 28 years old, born 1994. My entire life, I've never experienced the highs of the Washington organization. The last Super Bowl that Washington won was what? 1991, 3 years before I was born. I understand that Washington is one of the few teams in the league that have multiple championships, multiple Super Bowls. I have never lived to see it. And When you look since 1999, when Dan Snyder originally bought or was spearheaded a group that bought the Washington Redskins at the time. Since then, Washington has had one of the worst losing record or one of the worst win percentages in the league. I think they're like 5th or 6th worst. Now you're saying, how does the owner affect that? Why is it not the coaches? Why is it not the GMs? Why is it not the players? Which of course it is. But Dan Snyder, there's been so much. There's a reason why a lot of people say that there's a cloud over. There was a dark cloud since 1999. There was a dark cloud over the Washington organization. Yes, we've had Joe Gibbs, who's a good coach. Yes, we've had players like Sean Taylor, rest in peace, Clinton Portis, Santana Moss, Pierre Garçon. We had about 10 minutes of Robert Griffin III, Kirk Cousins, Mark Burnell, Rex Grossman, Jason Campbell. We've had a lot of we've had Alex Smith, Colt McCoy, Mark Sanchez for a couple games, Kyle Allen. Washington has never been viable in my entire life. Yes, we've had we won. The last time we made an appearance in the playoffs, which of course was Taylor Heineke, was in 2020. But since I was born, Washington has been to the playoffs 6 times. 1999, 2005, 2007, 2012, 2015, 2020. When you look at, since we are just talking about football, what legacy does Dan Snyder hold? What legacy does Dan Snyder leave as the owner of the Washington now Commanders? Well, Washington was once a storied franchise, once a franchise that was constantly competing for championships and constantly competing for Super Bowls. I mean, they won 3 of them. They were always one of those teams that were in the running to win before Dan Snyder got there. And when you think about Dan Snyder, what do you think about? You don't think about Here's the biggest indictment of Dan Snyder. And it's not just winning and losing or winning percentage or whatever. When you hear the name Dan Snyder, what's the first thing that comes to mind? I'm sure it's not how good Washington's been. I'm sure it's not how they finally changed the name from the Redskins to the football team to now the Commanders. I'm sure it's not the beautiful culture that he has built. When you think of Dan Snyder, the first thing you probably think about is, well, he did have the whole sex ring thing with the cheerleaders. Oh, alleged. Or, well, he was part of those emails with John Gruden, which essentially got John Gruden out of there. John Gruden for the Raiders, but there was multiple racial emails that Dan Snyder was a part of. that were conveniently muted. Gotcha. It could be the multiple sexual assault allegations by former staff members and former employees. That could be what it is. It could be how he made Washington such a toxic environment that he has turned Washington. That is a beautiful city, Washington, D.C., even though that the stadium is in Largo, but you have Maryland, you have Washington, D.C., you have Virginia. A beautiful place, and was once a storied franchise, was once a free agent destination. He turned Washington into a place that nobody wants to play. Mainly because of Dan Snyder. Or the fact of every single person that has left Washington, whether it's coaching, whether it's players, they've all thrived somewhere else. Or you've brought them to Washington, terrible contracts like Hines or like Albert Hainsworth. Or at the end of their prime, you give up a Champ Bailey for a Clint Portis. While he was a fan favorite, he still was past his prime. This wasn't the Denver Broncos Clint Portis that Washington was getting. Dan Snyder was one of the worst owners in sports history. Because you can't name one thing that he has done that has been a positive. Or if he has done something positive, it's come too late. Like, do you know how many times people have complained about the Washington Redskins name? And once people like FedEx, who is, of course, the sponsor of the stadium, once they said, we'll pull out if you don't change the name. All right, we got to pull out now. Now it's affecting our dollars. Now, I'm not going to put that all on Dan Snyder because, there's still racial names out there that have yet to be changed. But again, you can't name me one positive thing that Dan Snyder has done for the team. One. That is how you know he hasn't had the best tenure. What has he done positive for the Washington Commanders? It's a new day in Washington. For the first time in a while, it feels good to be a Washington Commanders fan. And if you frequent social media, if you see Twitter and you know anybody that's a Washington fan, ask them how they feel today. I put money the response would be uniform. I don't know much about Joe Harris. I don't know much. I mean, I know Magic. Shouts out to Magic Johnson. Of course, I know who Magic Johnson is, and he now owns or part owner of 3 of the 4 major sports, U.S. sport leagues. So shouts out to him. So I don't know what Joe Harris is going to do. I don't know what Magic Johnson is going to do. I don't know if they're going to change the fortune. In fact, I'm almost 1,000% sure they're going to change the fortune because they can't, even if they don't succeed, they can't make the organization any more worse than Dan Snyder has. And if you think I'm being too biased and too harsh, I'll hit you with some numbers before we move on. Washington has had one of the worst losing percentages. I think nearly 50% since 1999. Before 1999, Washington made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 playoff appearances before 1999. After 1999, 1, 2, 3, 5. Since 1999, Washington has had the second most quarterbacks start for their team, only behind the Cleveland Browns. Since 1999, Washington has had the third most coaches, only behind, of course, the Cleveland Browns. And actually, I'm sorry, the second most, only behind the Cleveland Browns. Since 1999, Washington has had one of the lowest attendance rates and has been voted, this is by fans, this is by players, this is by organizations, voted the worst organization in the NFL since 1999. And you probably ask yourself, why do I keep saying since 1999? Well, that is when Dan Snyder bought the team. That is when Dan Snyder bought the team. I'm not saying that because we have a new owner or because Washington has a new owner, they are going to be Super Bowl champions or they're going to be now powerhouse or be powerhouses again in the NFC. What I'm saying is this spells hope. It feels like a new light, like you ever take off a weight vest and how light you feel? That's what it feels like being a Washington fan now. Especially with Dan Snyder essentially being out. I'm happy. If you want to get a biased opinion from me, Dan Snyder did absolutely nothing positive for Washington. And if it wasn't for 13 minutes of RG3, a couple years with Joe Gibbs, Kirk Cousins, and Mark Brunell, they would have nothing. Nothing. Oh, and they keep on, which is nasty. They keep on writing the death of Sean Taylor and doing it very distastefully, might I add. It feels good to be a Washington fan right now, and it's funny because I haven't said that in a while. I've said that, but I haven't said it and meant it in a while. It feels good to be a Washington Commanders fan. And good riddance to Dan Snyder. So, one of the biggest reasons also that I said that I'm just excited today and I'm excited about this time is NBA playoff basketball. Again, we know, if you know me, you know I love the playoffs. You know I love NBA. Basketball is my favorite sport. So we are here. And while I'm recording this is Friday afternoon. There's still two playing games that happen. The Thunder have to play the Timberwolves, and the Bulls have to play the Heat. The winner of the Bulls and the Heat game will be playing the Bucks. The winner of the Timberwolves and Thunder game will be playing the Nuggets. Of course, the 7th seed, 2 and 7 seed are, of course, the 7th seed that was in the plan. That has been decided. That is the Grizzlies going against the Lakers and the Celtics going against the Hawks. The Raptors and the Pelicans are both out of the tournament because they lost. I'm not going to spend too much time on the play-in except for the fact of when you lose kind of like the Raptors lost, they lost and they missed like 18 free throws. Now, yeah, shouts out to DeMar DeRozan's daughter. She was, yelling and screeching every single time that the Raptors were at the free throw line. But if you lose a close game like that, after being up 19 points, by the way, 19 points, I think, in the third quarter, and you lose, and then you also miss 19 free throws, changes are going to come. I don't think that it's his fault, but losing like that is kind of how you see someone like Nick Nurse, the coach, get up out of there. And we've been saying all year that the Raptors are going to need to make change. We've been saying that for a couple years now. The Raptors are going to need to make changes. And losing like that, you kind of it's going to happen. I don't know who's going to go. People are going to go because you're not up 18 or 19 points in a play-in, miss 18 free throws, and nothing changes. Nah. And the Pelicans also, you hear a lot about the Pelicans and you hear a lot about, Zion Williamson not playing. And it really goes, but he said physically he's 100%. They're physically clearing him to play. It's just mentally and then everything. I get it, especially this, the new age of sports, and mental health is important. All I would say is the Pelicans are one of the best teams in the league with Zion Williamson playing. And the crazy thing about that is Zion Williamson barely played with Brandon Ingram. So I can imagine how Zion Williamson and Brandon Ingram will play together in a playoff series, but we will not know right now because they lost. So I'm not going to stay too much on the plan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break down every series and give my prediction. The reason, and again, I understand there's play-in games. It doesn't matter who the Bucks play. Either if they play the Bulls, if they play the Heat, the Bucks is the best team in really basketball right now. If you really look at it, they are the best team. They have the best record. They have the best player. I said a couple episodes ago, I said that they were number 2 to the Boston Celtics. Well, they have since proven me wrong, and I think they're the best team. Giannis is playing at an all-time level right now, and I don't think he's going to win MVP, but definitely in the conversation to win his 3rd MVP. Of course, you have Jrue Holiday, who's one of the most underrated players. The thing that I think that the Bucks are going to go as far as Chris Middleton takes them. Now, I know that you said, but what about Giannis? We know Giannis is the best player on the team. Giannis is arguably the best player in the league. However, when you're playing against maybe a Celtics down the line, maybe a 76ers down the line, it can't just be Giannis. And as we saw last year with Chris Middleton out, that's what decided the fate, I guess, of the Bucks, especially when they had to play against the Celtics. So while yes, we know Giannis is good, you're only going to go as far as Chris Middleton takes you. Now, or I'm not going to say Chris Middleton takes you. You're only going to, if Chris Middleton is right, I think the Bucks are going to make it to the NBA Finals. If not, we'll see. But I don't care if Chris Middleton's out or not. I don't think that the Bulls nor the Heat have a shot to beat the Bucks. So that's why I only have a picture of Giannis up there and not the series matchup, because it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters at all who plays the Bucks between the Heat and the Bulls. Yeah, the Bulls, again, it was a good run if they do win. If it was a good run as far as coming back from 19 down, but you were down 19 to a Raptors team that struggles to score. And it doesn't matter if the Heat should have beat the Hawks, but the Heat game was a microcosm of exactly how the season went. One person does good, nobody else does. Usually that one person is Jimmy Butler and everyone else struggles. Well, this game, it was Kyle Lowry. Everyone else pretty much struggled. And the Heat, for some reason, struggle with scoring. It doesn't matter. The Bucks are going to win that series, I think, between anyone. And I have it's being a gentleman's sweep, meaning the Bucks in 4 or 5, honestly, with the Bulls or Heat. That's how good the Bucks are. That's how good the Bucks can be. So then you have a very interesting matchup, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks. To me, out of every single, and I mean when I say every single, I mean on East and West, this is the closest matchup that we have. Both these teams have kind of been a surprise this entire year. Yes, we knew, and yes, we thought the Cleveland Cavaliers were going to be good, but we didn't know how good they can be with Donovan Mitchell. I didn't think they were good enough to be a 4 seed in the East. I thought they were good enough to make the playoffs, but I also didn't think that when your backcourt is being led by Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland, I didn't think that a team like that could be as good defensively as they are. While no, Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland are not good defensively. They're actually one of the worst defensive backcourts. As a team, Cleveland has one of the best, if not the best defense. That's behind Evan Mobley. That's behind, the bigs at that Jarrett Allen. So it was shocking to me that the Cleveland Cavaliers were that good, and the same can be said for the Knicks. I know you can't be a Dallas fan and look at Jalen Brunson and think to yourself, like, what if? Jalen Brunson has completely turned this Knicks team around. And don't get me wrong, the Knicks team was good, especially with Julius Randle, especially with R.J. Barrett, especially with Emmanuel Quickley, who I think is going to win Sixth Man of the Year. But you know what the Knicks are fighting? The Knicks are fighting history. The Knicks are fighting history and perception. We talked about that last episode. History and perception. And what do I mean by that? The Knicks, you can have a good season, have a good regular season. We've seen this several times. But usually, once it gets down to the playoffs, you see the real Knicks, and they have some embarrassing playoff losses like the Atlanta Hawks. But then they have playoff losses that you like, hey, I understand. But one thing that we do know is the Knicks have been for a while now just a regular season team. So the question is, can they get over the hump? And can the Cavaliers win? I think this would be their first series win without LeBron James if they win this. I believe that. I could be wrong, but I think if the Cleveland Cavaliers win this series, this will be their first series win without LeBron James. The keys to this matchup, in my opinion, is the backcourt for the Cleveland Cavaliers, and who is going to be the consistent scorer outside of Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle for the Knicks. We know how good Donovan Mitchell is. I think he just finished the regular season with like 4 or 5 straight 40-point games. We know how good Donovan Mitchell is, and we know how good Darius Garland can be. I think Darius Garland has a 50-point game this year, I believe, or last year. It's just, is that going to be able to translate to the playoffs? And for the Knicks, we know how good Jalen Brunson's been, and we know how good Julius Randle has been. Both of them. I mean, Julius Randle, I think he has a 60-point game, 65-point game, or something like that. Or 59-point game, something. It's just R.J. Barrett has struggled majority of this year. Emmanuel Quickley has been good, but of course the playoffs are different from the regular season, as we clearly know. I think that this is probably going to be the most even matchup, honestly, in the entire playoffs. Now, I don't think there's going to be drastic blowouts or anything, but this one is the hardest one to pick for me, and I'm going to go with Knicks in 7. I just think the defense that the Cleveland Cavaliers hold, or the defense that the Cleveland Cavaliers play, doesn't stop the Knicks at their best positions outside of Julius Randle. But Julius Randle's ability to step out and hit a three and hit a jump shot definitely bodes well, because you're not scoring anything in the paint when we talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I think that the matchup between Evan Mobley and Julius Randle is going to be the key to this entire playoff series. Who wins? Who makes it? Like whoever wins that battle, Evan Mobley and Julius Randle, I think is going to win the series. And because I think Donovan Mitchell is going to outplay Jalen Brunson, even though Jalen Brunson has been good. Don't get me wrong, but I just think Donovan Mitchell is a better player, and he's going to outplay them. Darius Garland, we know that, but if we get a big series out of R.J. Barrett, then that changes a lot of things. I just think that the Knicks have played so well this year, and I think that the Knicks, with the infusion of Jalen Brunson, is bigger than we really can quantify, as far as how important his energy is and his scoring, and just how important he is to this Knicks team. And I think he is going to propel them past the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I have the Knicks beating the Cavaliers in 7, which really means it's like a toss-up series, but I have Cleveland in 7. The 76ers and Brooklyn, that's probably going to be a sweep. Don't get me wrong. A lot of the damage, a lot of the 45 wins that the Nets have garnered, of course, came when they had Kyrie, when they had Kevin Durant before the trades. And don't get me wrong, Mikal Bridges has been incredible. He's been a lot better scoring than I thought he would. Of course, you have Spencer Dinwiddie. You also have Cam Johnson, all of which have been good for the Nets. However, there's a reason why I think they only won 10 or 11 games since losing Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And now you're playing against a team in the 76ers that has the potential MVP, that has James Harden, and James Harden has a lot to prove, that has Tyrese Maxey, that has Tobias Harris. I think they're going to get swept. I think this is going to be a sweep. I don't see it. I don't see any way, shape, or form the Nets can pull this off. And that's the thing. Even I think this is, again, the Nets are resting on what the hell Kyrie Irving and KD did for them. They're not winning this series. I would be shocked if they won a game, to be honest. Don't get me wrong. Mikal Bridges is great. Cam Thompson is great. They're really good scorers. And Mikal Bridges is a really, really good two-way player. By far, Brooklyn's best player. But I don't see any way, shape, or form that the 76ers lose this series. I have 76ers in 4. they have, even though Nick Claxton has been really good and could be in the conversation with Defensive Player of the Year, they don't have anybody that can go toe for toe with either Joel Embiid or honestly James Harden if James Harden comes to play. So maybe Mikal Bridges with James Harden, but nah. I have the 76ers winning this one very easily. And that's another thing. No team here is without flaw. That's one thing that you've seen in the regular season, and that's one thing that you'll see in the playoffs. Not one team is without flaw. The biggest flaw that the 76ers have is their bench. Their bench is one of the least scoring benches in the league. And the 76ers play a player that is a legit self-check. And that is, of course, PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker is good defensively, but he will give you absolutely nothing on the offense side of the ball. So they're pretty much playing 4-on-5 when they're playing offense. Once Joel Embiid goes to the bench, they struggle mightily because he is so much of their offense. The problem is the Nets have absolutely no counter to that. Like the Nets, they don't have a big that can just come in and wreak havoc. Outside of Mikal Bridges, they don't really have, but we don't know how consistent Mikal Bridges can be scoring the ball, especially in the playoffs. Again, every team has a flaw. It's just, I just don't see it with the 76ers. I don't, as far as this series, I don't see the Nets capitalizing on those flaws. So I have 76ers winning this series in 4. One thing that we also know about basketball is a game of matchups. And some matchups are better than the others. We'll talk about that a lot more on the Western Conference side, but basketball is about matchups. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I think the Heat missed a golden opportunity is because if they would have beat the Hawks, they would have went up against the Celtics. And I think that the Celtics and the Heat match up better with each other than the Celtics and the Hawks. A lot of the Celtics' success, of course, is behind Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But in the playoffs, I think it's going to be the others, like how does Malcolm Brogdon fare? How does Grant Williams fare? How does Robert Williams fare? Because Robert Williams, they pretty much had him on bubble wrap this entire year. This is a terrible matchup for the Hawks. Terrible matchup from every position. Trae Young, he's a great player, but he's smaller side. You throw the former Defensive Player of the Year on him and Marcus Smart. It's just I don't see the Hawks. Maybe the Hawks can win a game, maybe 2. I just don't see the Hawks being able to capitalize on the Celtics. Because with the Celtics, so the weakness for the Celtics is they are the definition of live by the 3, die by the 3. If they're hitting their threes, they're damn near unstoppable. If they're missing their threes or you're effectively slowing down a Jason Tatum or a Jaylen Brown, you have a good shot of winning because that means then, Malcolm Brogdon has to score more or Al Horford has to score more or Marcus Smart is taking bad shots. This team, the Boston Celtics has rode the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown wave this entire year, which don't get me wrong, they have been, I think, the highest scoring duo in the league. So it makes sense. But again, that's tough basketball when you get to the playoffs. But I just don't think that it's going to matter when you go against the Hawks because it's just a bad matchup. I don't see Bogdanovich doing anything defensively. John Collins, this series kind of neutralizes him because it takes him away from the paint. I have the Celtics winning in 5 or 6. Now if there was the Heat, I think it could be a 6-7 game series because of defensively how the Heat matches up with the Celtics and how, the physicality that the Heat play does not, or bodes well for the Heat and not as well for the Celtics. However, they're playing the Hawks, and the Hawks have had turmoil all year. And they don't really. The Hawks doesn't have anyone that can slow down Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, in that matter. So I have the Celtics in maybe 5 or 6. The same thing I said for the Bucks is the same thing I can kind of say for the Nuggets. Yes, I like the Timberwolves. Yes, I like the Thunder, but I don't have them beating the Nuggets at all. I think that the Nuggets have probably the most to prove as far as a team, seeing as though they constantly are amongst one of the top Western Conference teams in the playoffs, yet they fall short every single year. I think the one year they went to the Western Conference Finals was the bubble, and we know how that happened. What I'll say is this. It is about matchups, and I think that, we don't know the health status, or we don't know the health of Nikola Jokic. We know he's going to play, but he did miss a lot of games down the stretch due to injury. And again, I'm recording this before the game, so if they go up against a Timberwolves, I think that's harder of a matchup when you have Karl Anthony Towns and you have Rudy Gobert. I think that would be a tougher matchup for the Nuggets because of their size, and they can throw players at Nikola Jokic. And for the Thunder, the Nuggets don't play that good defensively, and they don't have anybody, in my opinion, that can really slow down Shai Gilgeous. I know they're probably going to put Morris on him, but yeah, no. I just think that as a collective team, there's a reason why the Nuggets are number one, with Nikola Jokic, with Aaron Gordon, with Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. They're playing good basketball. Now they have kind of sputtered at the end, but that is due to injury and stuff. So I do need to see how they are. But it doesn't matter who comes out this playing. I don't think that they're going to beat the Nuggets. I think they can beat them in a game or two. I don't think the Nuggets are going to sweep anyone. But I do think that whether it's the Thunder, whether it's the Timberwolves, the Nuggets are going to win because they have the best player in the series, and there's a reason why they're number one in the standings. So, or number one in the West in the standings. So it doesn't matter who comes out to play. I do think that it'll be more interesting if the Timberwolves come out because of the matchups with Karl Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert and Kyle Anderson with Nikola Jokic, but we'll have to see. Oh boy. One of the biggest reasons why I went so hard last episode with the Clippers is this matchup right here. I'm not saying duck anybody, or I'm not saying that you should run from anybody or you should, duck anybody. But what I'm saying is you should be smart and strategic about your run to the finals. The run to the finals is more. Look, every single team, there's not been a team that has won the finals that hasn't caught breaks. That's just sports in general. There's not a team that's won a Super Bowl, that's won a Stanley Cup, that's won a national championship, that's won an NBA Finals without breaks. You have a golden opportunity in front of you, if you're the Clippers, to lose the last game so you don't have to see the fully powered Phoenix Suns round one, especially when your second best player is out in Paul George. You didn't take the golden opportunity. You won the game. Now you're seeing the Suns. I think that this is a terrible matchup for the Clippers because of their health status. If Paul George was playing, it would be different, and I may possibly pick differently. But look at the matchups, man. Russell Westbrook against Chris Paul. Nobody against Devin Booker. That would have been Paul George. Kevin Durant against Kawhi Leonard. Zubats against. Look, it's just not a good matchup, especially when you see how good they are, or how good of a scoring team the Suns are with Kevin Durant on the floor. Again, they have not lost with Kevin Durant in the lineup. Now, there are some things, you do see the opponents that they played and the actual players that they played. There are some things that kind of give me concern for the Suns, like their bench scoring or their scoring outside of Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. But the Clippers, in my opinion, have absolutely no answer for them. The Clippers drastically struggle with trying to find shots outside of Kawhi Leonard. Russell Westbrook is not a shooter. Terrence Mann really isn't a shooter. They don't really have a shooter outside of Norman Powell. And you cannot bank your playoff series on the offense of Norman Powell, because Norman Powell has struggled mightily this entire year. Like, now I understand it could be the lack of consistency in his minutes and his role in the team. And I understand that you also got Eric Gordon, but to me, I don't think that they have enough because of the injury of Paul George. They don't have enough to beat the Suns. Now, if they would have lost the last game of the regular season, they wouldn't have to play the Suns. But lo and behold, they're here. I think that the Suns are good. When they're firing on all cylinders, I think that they're good enough to make it to the NBA Finals. And the same thing for the Clippers, but as we know, the Clippers are not firing on all cylinders right now because they do not have Paul George. And you're going up against a perfectly healthy team, against a team that's losing or that does not have their second best player. I have the Suns winning this in about 5 or 6. I think that there's going to be a game where Kawhi Leonard goes crazy and the defense, the physicality and the height and the athleticism that the Clippers have is going to kind of overwhelm the Suns, maybe a game or two. But the elite scoring that the Suns hold, I just don't think that the Clippers can match that as far as an entire series. So I have the Suns winning this series in probably 5 games. I got Suns in 5. Again, it would be different if Paul George was playing, but Paul George is in fact not playing. And yeah. Not to mention, it's like you can't say this is foreign. The whole strategically planning your trip to the finals, because the Clippers did this when they made it to the Western Conference Finals. And they arguably could have made it to the NBA Finals because they went up against the Suns. They could have made it to the NBA Finals, was it 2020? If they would have, or 2021. If they would have had Kawhi Leonard, but they didn't. And now you're going without your second best player in Paul George. Yeah. The most intriguing, one of the most intriguing matchups is, of course, the Kings against the Warriors. This matchup is intriguing and has so many storylines to it. And this is one of the reasons why this is probably, in my opinion, the most fascinating, the most interesting matchup. You have a team that hasn't been to the playoffs since 2006, I think, going against the reigning champs. You're going against a coach in Steve Kerr. You're going against Mike Brown, who was, of course, the defensive coordinator or the defensive coach for the Warriors last few years. You're going up against the number one offense against the Golden State Warriors. You're going up against one of the worst home or away records against one of the best or the best road team. However, you're going against a team that, again, has absolutely no experience in the playoffs. None of them, except for the coaches. And, of course, you're going against the reigning champs. I think that there's so many points that you can there's so many points that you can make about this series, and you wouldn't be wrong about any of them. And there's so many storylines or so many stats that you can attach yourself to to steer your predictions, and that's not wrong either. Well, of course, a prediction is a prediction. If everyone knew what was going to happen, then the stat there's two stats. There's three stats that I'm going to attach myself to bold or to make my prediction with this Golden State and Kings matchup. Stat one is experience. I don't know how I feel about the whole flip the switch thing. I know we've seen it before, and we've seen Golden State do it, but we also saw Golden State have Kevin Durant on the team. So it's very easy to flip the switch when you have one of the greatest offensive weapons you've ever seen, along with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson on them. So I know that, but you're going up against... I can't stress to you enough how lack of experience the Kings have in the playoffs, and how it's been widely documented and widely known that the playoffs are not the regular season. So a lot of the things that you build habits in the regular season, but in the playoffs you have to execute. And if you don't execute, you're out of here. You're going against a team that just won the NBA Finals. Now, I'm not saying, I understand this last year, and I also understand what we saw in the playoffs, but you're dealing with an older team that they understand the regular season. All we have to do is get in, and boom, we're still the Golden State Warriors. That's one stat. The fact of the Kings as a franchise have not been to the playoffs since, I think, 2006, compared to the team that has won 4 championships in 8 years. Like, okay, now that's one stat. Another stat I wanna attach myself to is neither team plays good defense. I think Golden State's like 18th or something in defense. However, the Kings are statistically one of the worst defenses in all of basketball. While, yes, they are statistically the best offense, they are one of the worst defenses. And as we know, when you're going up against a team with experience and with going up against a team that has Steph Curry, that has shooters, and that has droves of shooters, and that has players that can combat your best position, like De'Aaron Fox, you can throw a Steph Curry, you can throw a Gary Payton, you can throw a Klay Thompson, Domantas Sabonis, you can throw Draymond Green, you can throw Kevon Looney, you can throw Andrew Wiggins, you can throw these players at them. It's like that's going to be tough for a team, especially a team that on the other side of the ball doesn't play defense at all. Now, yes, Golden State plays middle of the pack or below middle of the pack defense at 18th, but still, that's tough, especially when you're going up against the lethal shooters that Golden State has. But I will shoot the Kings some bail. And the third stat that I want to look at is, of course, the road game stats. How Golden State is one of the worst. They've only won like 11 games on the road. And I think they've only won 2 games on the road against a team above 500. And you're playing against you're playing against a team in the Sacramento Kings that have one of the best road records in the league. That is what I was talking about, flipping the switch. It's hard when it's just like, all right, bro, you've only won. You're like 11-30 something on the road. That's 11-31 or 11-30. That is a tough stat to overlook. Like, come on now. Like, how is that even possible? Especially when you have one of the best road records or home records in the league. It's baffling. And you're going up against a team. I think the second game is the most important game. I think whoever wins game 2 is going to win the series, in my opinion. I think the Kings hear a lot of this, The Kings hear a lot of, hey, Golden State's this, Golden State's that. A lot of people have Golden State winning and upsetting, and even Vegas has Golden State favored heavily. I think the Kings are going to steal game one or win game one. They're at home. I think they're going to win game one. I think game two is the most important game. I think if Golden State, I will say this. If Golden State steals a game at Sacramento, they're gonna win the series. Like if they steal game two, if they steal game two or game one, if they win one game in Sacramento, I think they're gonna win. Because it's tough when you have the Chase Center crowd going crazy. Golden State's rolling. They just beat it, even though it was the Portland Trail Blazers without Damian Lillard. They just beat a team by 50. Look. If Golden State steals a game, and if they can, because again, they're 2 and whatever, they've only have 2 road wins with a team above 500. If Golden State can steal a win on the road, they're going to win the series, and I think they are. I think Golden State is going to win this in 6. I just think the Golden State has the best player, and that's another thing about all these series. When you look, even when you go back to, I have arguably the best player in the series winning every single series outside. Think the Bucks, Giannis winning the series. The Cleveland Cavaliers are the only ones that I don't think. I think Donovan Mitchell is probably the best player in the series, but I don't have Cleveland winning. Sixers have Joel Embiid, best player in the series. They're winning. Boston has Jason Tatum winning. Nuggets, Nikola Jokic winning. Suns, Kevin Durant winning. This one has Steph Curry. And it again, and don't get me wrong, I'm not taking away from how good the Kings are, and the Kings have been. Keegan Murray has the rookie record for 3-pointers made. Again, this is one of the best offenses, or statistically the best offense, and one of the best road teams in the league. It's just, that sounds good, but when you get to the playoffs, it's a different monster, and you're going up against a team that just won a championship and is championship laden, and they understand, they know the pressure. Even the younger players, even Jordan Poole, Moses Moody, they understand playoff intensity. Even though they didn't except for Jordan Poole, even though Dante DiVincenzo is probably the only because he has national even though I know national championship, college is not the NBA. The pressure can still be the same. And I think Andrew Wiggins is going to be big, has to be big for Golden State to win. But I don't know if he has to be big for this series. Now, moving forward, like maybe the next series, yes, he has to be. Yes. But I don't think Andrew Wiggins, I think they're going to try to, they said he's going to be on like a minutes restriction, maybe 20 to 25 minutes. I don't know if you want his first matchup go up against one of the fastest players in the league in De'Aaron Fox. So I think they're probably going to keep him away from that. But that's why you have Gary Payton II. And that's why it was so good that Gary Payton played the last few games, maybe last week or two of the season, so he can get his legs on. And he's their best guard defender. So I have Golden State in 6. I just think the lack of experience and lack of defense is going to be the downfall for the Kings. So I have Golden State in 6. And the matchup that has been widely talked about and widely dissected has been the 2 and 7 seed, the Lakers against the Grizzlies. To me, this has been one of the most difficult series to gauge, and I'm gonna tell you why. What this series, and honestly, with the Golden State series as well, what this series is asking me to do. And what the Golden State series is asking me to do is forget about majority, if not all, of the regular season and everything that I saw and the the habits that were built this regular season and just look at the matchup. Because if we want to talk about the regular season and talk about, Golden State's terrible road record or Golden State's terrible defense against teams above 500, there's no way that you would pick the Kings to lose this. If you're looking at the records and you're looking at the road records, the defensive records, there's no way that you would pick the Lakers to go up against the 7 Lakers that are 43-39 go up to upset a team that is 51-31 in the Grizzlies that could possibly have the defensive player in the year in Jaren Jackson Jr., that has John Morant, one of the most exciting players, that has Dylan Brooks, that has Desmond Bane, So that's what these series are asking me to do is just forget everything we saw in the regular season and all the habits that were built and the fact that the Lakers just came out of the play-in. And I might do that. I might do that, man. Here's the thing. The Lakers have been one of the best teams after the trade deadline. I think they have the best record in basketball, actually, after the trade deadline. And one thing that is always an unknown is the health of the Lakers, is the health of their best players, Anthony Davis, LeBron James. As we've seen, LeBron James has missed more time he's 38 years old, bro. Like, he's going to miss time. And Anthony Davis, as we know, he's on that injury-prone list. So that is the question about, how good can the Lakers be? But the Lakers have been really good with D'Angelo Russell, even though D'Angelo Russell was terrible in the play-in. And they've been good with Dennis Schroeder. They've been good with Jared Vanderbilt, even though he was terrible in the play-in too. They've been good with Rui Hachimura. Like, this is a good team now. With the trade deadline moves, this is a good team. And, of course, you have Austin Reeves, who's been a shocking surprise. When I look at this Grizzlies team, it kind of goes back to when I was talking about the Celtics and the Hawks. This is a terrible matchup for the Grizzlies. When you talk about size, when you talk about the best players and their positions, the Grizzlies have a tough time matching up with the Lakers' best players, which is, of course, LeBron James and Anthony Davis. With the loss of Steven Adams and Brandon Clark, that makes this Grizzlies front court extremely skinny. Outside of Jaren Jackson, who is going to have to play a lot. To me, there's no way Anthony Davis can be on the floor without Jaren Jackson not be there. Jaren Jackson has to be the primary guard or primary defender for Anthony Davis. The problem that Jaren Jackson finds, though, is he struggles mightily with foul trouble. Now, a lot of that is because he has not had to play a lot of minutes. So when he does, this entire season, but now that he's probably going to have to with Anthony Davis, he has some bad fouls. We know how good Anthony Davis can be. We know, in my opinion, at his best, Anthony Davis has the talent to be a top 5 player in this league. And while Jaren Jackson is good, I don't think he has the ability to match Anthony Davis, because Anthony Davis can also give it to you on the defensive side of the ball as well. And there's nobody. There is nobody on the Grizzlies that can defend LeBron James. Yes, you can throw Dylan Brooks at him. You can throw Desmond Bane. But when LeBron James is in attack mode, it's pretty much a wrap. The Grizzlies, so there are avenues in which the Grizzlies can win. I think that John Morant has to be the best player in the series. I think, the When the Grizzlies play the Golden State Warriors, they are the greatest 3-point shooting team of all time. Go look it up. When the Grizzlies play the Golden State Warriors, they are the greatest 3-point shooting team of all time. Every single person on that team learns how to shoot like Steph Curry when they play Golden State. They're going to have that 3-point shooting when they play against the Lakers, because the Lakers aren't the best defensive team at all outside of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. Well, outside of Anthony Davis, really. They're gonna need to draw from a well that they haven't been able to. The Grizzlies, they have to draw from a well that they haven't drawn from this entire season, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I don't know if they're gonna win this series. They have to be one of the best offensive teams, which they're not, or they're going to have to collectively find a way to slow down LeBron James and Anthony Davis, which I don't see them doing. So I have the Lakers winning this series. I just think matchups, man. And I think the Lakers is a terrible, even though Dylan Brooks said we love to see the Lakers. I think that they could win. Obviously, the Grizzlies could win, but I just think how good the Lakers are playing, how they're rolling. Even though they didn't play good at all in the play-in, they just fumbled against the Timberwolves, or the Timberwolves fumbled. I just think the Lakers is a tough matchup for the Grizzlies, and I have the Lakers winning in 6. I just think being led by LeBron James and Anthony Davis, the Grizzlies, it's tough, especially how good the Lakers are playing going into the playoffs. So those are my predictions, man. I'll do this once we get to the second round. I'll do the second round, but those are my predictions. Let me know your predictions. Let me know who you think's gonna win. Again, I'm shooting this Friday afternoon, so I don't know the results of the play-in right now, or the final games of the play-in. But even whoever makes the 8th seed on both sides, I don't think they're beating the Nuggets nor the Bucks. But it is what it is. Let me know what you think, and let me know who you have winning the championship. Talk about it. There you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly appreciate you guys. If you want an Unpopular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs, multiple different types of shirts, types of hoodies, types of jackets, types of sweaters. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. It's getting hot, so go get your t-shirts. Also, please subscribe to if you're listening. Please subscribe to if you're watching. It definitely means a lot to me. I just got over 700 subscribers, which is insane. Which I appreciate all you guys. Subscribe to the TikTok. Subscribe to Instagram. Follow your boy. And I can't do it. Tell a friend to tell a friend. If you like the content, spread the word. Tell a friend. It means a lot to me. It really, really does. And until next time, much love.